Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Lodestore's Lending Leaders. We have a special guest, my friend, Marcia OConner, fellow Philly-based entrepreneur and CEO and founder of the O'Connor Group, talent acquisition and human resource service provider. She's going to describe that a lot better than I am. She's also president of the Philadelphia chapter of the Entrepreneurs Organization, one that I'm involved with newly, and highly recommend any other entrepreneurs out there to get involved as well. Meet a lot of great people and learn a lot to improve your business. Marcia, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thanks, Jim, for having me.
So would love to, I think hiring and kind of dealing with people problems is the crux of really any business. I always like the term business would be easy if it wasn't for people and employees and clients. And that is just pretty much never the case. So tell us a little bit about how you work with people on those problems, how you started the O'Connor Group, kind of the challenges you had to get where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. We started it almost 14 years ago and started it with an idea of just doing recruiting. And then we morphed into an HR side of the house as well. I think the idea is we work with a lot of companies that are probably for the HR 100 employees or less. A lot of them don't usually have a very strong HR infrastructure, and we help them put that all together so that they can have a smooth sailing process with regards to HR. And that means like your HRIS system, your employee relations, your benefits, your handbook, the whole gambit. And we've been very fortunate. So we work with manufacturing companies, professional services, life sciences, and technology. And those are my four main buckets that we have. And we're all over the country. We're not just here in King of Prussia, but I would say we have employees all over the country as well as clients all over the country. And we also do some clients overseas. We have some clients in Germany, Italy, and in Asia. So pretty cool.
So you get to deal with all types of HR rules and regulations, I'm sure.
Oh my God, each country has its own plethora of regulations, especially when you go overseas. And now we're finding like each state is getting a little bit more intricate now too. So you really need to make sure if you're going to go to other states to have employees, you better know those laws for your handbooks.
So is there typically an event where a business says, Marcia, I need you? Do they have a funding round and need to hire a lot of people? Do they have an employee sue them? Do they want to implement benefits? Like, well, at what point are they, kind of crying uncle? Because I'm pretty close on my HR side. So asking for a friend here.
Well, there's usually three different ways. One of them is that they'll say to me that they're very frustrated with their HR right now, and they just don't know how to get it fixed. And we'll come in and do an HR assessment, not there to hurt the HR, but to help the HR to figure out what's going well, what's not going well, and how can we help them get better. Number two is regards to they have no HR. They have like 5 people doing this and that. This person does this, and then it goes to this person. There's really no control factor happening. So we help put a control emphasis together. And then lastly, it's really coming into, hey, my person left and, I need to fill that role. So those are the 3 areas we try to get into on the HR side of the house. And it really, the HR assessment is probably going to be the biggest indicator for us as to like what to really focus on first. But sometimes they're better off than they think they are. And, they don't really have that relationship with their HR like they really should. I think your CFO and your HR, you should be at the hip with both of them because one's managing your people, one's managing your money. So you better know them very, very well and trust them.
Or in some cases, if you're a founder, you're just both of those things combined too. With everything else. So
you can't wear too many hats, Jim, because I do EOS. I'm an EOS company. And one of the things I found out is I was wearing like 5 hats. And my coach said to me, he's like, well, do you want to run this company or do you want to constantly be in the weeds of this company? And I said, I want to run the company. He said, well, then you're going to have to hire this person and this person, this person. I said, okay. And so I now have a director of sales and marketing. We're going to have my own internal HR manager. I have outsourced my accounting. So I truly just focus now on running the company.
I remember when we talked previously, you talked about the importance of letting go of accounting as you are an accountant by education and really, trusted yourself and liked doing that part of the job. But, for your business to grow, you have to let go of that, unfortunately, sometimes.
You do. And it's hard. And right now I'm at almost 60 people. And I think is really hard is I have clients that are coming in and I've never met them. I mean, my team has taken care of all of that. And that's when you sort of like, you feel like you're losing control, but you're not. It's just basically indicator of, hey, welcome to being a mid-sized company now.
Right. Mm-hmm. All those growing pains.
Yes. Yeah,
But
things they don't tell you when you first start out, by the way. So
no, exactly. Your job's just going to change every couple of years. So
yep,
get excited for it and figure
exactly.
it out. My wife always asks me if I'm spending time dealing with, picking a vendor for cleaning services or dealing with a copier or something like that. She's like, wait, is that what running a business is like? I'm like, yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes
Sometimes it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of information out there about being resignation season right now and the hiring environment really changing a lot. What have you've seen, over the last few months specifically of, are things really different when companies are going to hire? Are we entering the golden age of employee empowerment?
I think there's always been that engagement of employee empowerment, and that's been happening for a couple of years before COVID. I think you're talking about the great resignation. And I think it was coming more into effect because people were required to come back into the office after Labor Day. I think that has changed a little bit right now because of this new Delta factor that's going around. And I think people are being a little bit more lenient of saying, hey, we're going to be more into that hybrid factor instead of coming in the office. There are a few that are still making them come into the office, but I think they're more lenient of saying, okay, we'll work with you. The great resignation was going to come in as to like, no, I need you in the office, no exception. And if they're still not comfortable coming in, you got to keep in mind right now there are 5 jobs open per each person, 5 jobs. And so they have their plethora to pick upon
for every one applicant.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And so they're in that seat. We lost a lot of women in the workforce last year. We had a lot of people that were 60 years old and started retiring last year. So you have a lot of people that was in the workforce that are no longer in the workforce.
And unfortunately, not to mention the 400 or 600,000 people who died from COVID too, many of whom were in the workforce.
Yeah. So you have a lot of factors, and it doesn't help. We have unemployment. They're still getting that $300 an extra a week check until the end of September. And last year they got $600. Now, I'm not saying people didn't deserve that and need that. There are some people absolutely. But then there are other people that are turning down jobs right now because they say, I'm getting more money on unemployment. I'm willing to take that risk if you let me go. And that's what they're doing. And so it's been really hard, but that runs out. And so I think you're going to have some resignation absolutely in the fall. You got to have a lot more patience. But I think you want to make sure that you're talking to your staff now. Like we do stay interviews, and stay interviews basically are saying like, how are you? What's working well? What skills that you think you have we're not using? What training were you looking for that we haven't had? Is communication good? They've been very helpful to us because my operations manager, she does them with everybody. And then she provides the results to my leadership team. Invaluable information, invaluable. But do that now. It's much easier to do a stay interview than an exit interview.
Yep. I had a conversation with a client yesterday, and the mortgage industry throughout the pandemic has been thriving, mainly due to low interest rates. And we were talking about his sales staff, his loan officers, and he basically said any of these loan officers could leave the company in a second. So I am not going to do anything to step on their toes. Right. He's so afraid of anyone leaving that he doesn't want to touch that. And we were having a conversation and with an employee, and she was saying, oh, does he not trust his loan officers? And I said, I just don't think he wants them to know that he doesn't trust them more than anything else. But it's interesting to see. I don't know if you're seeing it differently in companies like the mortgage industry where there has been a lot of success. So now people have more opportunities, but people are also burnt out. Have you seen changes in the areas that have been able to thrive during the COVID period?
There's been several that have thrived, and a lot of them, a lot of marketing firms have thrived. Because of being online and using that digital technology side of the house. I have a lot of suppliers out there that, for products and all, they've thrived, especially if they had a digital e-commerce platform. And some restaurants, because they converted quickly for like that takeout mentality, have done phenomenal. And because they have now the outdoor seating, and now they have the indoor and the outdoor, they've got double capacity. So the hardest part for them is just finding people right now. So it's really been all those different areas that have done phenomenally well. Life sciences, you wouldn't even think COVID happened because life sciences, nothing stopped. It kept moving fast forward ahead.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And I've seen on our end, 6 months ago, a year ago, it was a great time to hire
Yeah.
because I would have applications, too many to know what to do with in the next couple of days. And for me, it was always kind of a sobering moment because it's when you really felt what the pandemic was like, when you saw how many people were looking for jobs.
Yeah.
And last week we put up a job and it was a tenth of what we had before
Yeah.
or less. What advice do you have for folks who are trying to hire positions right now? You had mentioned patience before.
Well, I think it's also you're talking if you're in the northeast side of the house right now, you have August, aka
Yeah.
Beach Shore month, okay, and everybody's trying to like squeeze out those last few weeks of summer and take as much vacation as they possibly can, and people just are not responding right now. And we have some clients that want to start working with us, and I'll tell them like, listen, let's wait for like 2 more weeks before we get started because you'll get a bigger response rate literally the day after Labor Day. And people are like, okay, back to gear. The kids are back in school.
Right.
It's time for me to figure out what I want to do here. You'll get more resolve. It's every year like this. I tell people September 15th and January 15th, like everything goes off again and it gets really crazy. I already told my team, I'm like, okay, get ready for the tsunami because it's coming. It's about 3 weeks away. And I said, so just if you have a slow week right now, I don't think we're not slow by far, but I'm saying, hey, don't kill yourself right now because that time is coming in a few weeks.
And that tsunami will be more like the perfect storm with retirement benefits or unemployment benefits rather going out as well. So now you have those folks starting to look for jobs in addition to kind of just the seasonality of it.
Oh yeah. And people don't want to deal with the application system online too, because some of their application systems are so outdated, shall I say, and they're so afraid that they're not going to get a response. So a lot more people are using LinkedIn, they're using Indeed to find their stuff. I tell people all the time, if your LinkedIn isn't updated, they're not going to reach out to you and call you. I said recruiters are finding their people 95% of the time through LinkedIn. So keep it updated if you're looking.
We've had our best luck hiring people through kind of our network, whether it be a LinkedIn post, honestly, half the time yields, oh, I know this person, or I thought of you, and send them along this way. I have clients, sending me their niece's resume or something like that. So it's always nice to be able to use that network too. And it shows you which of your clients really like you, I guess, too, which is always good.
But make it a big deal of your company. So if an employee referral bonus program isn't one of your top 3 sources for your employees, you're doing something wrong. And so you want to make sure that I have a client of mine, they're in the accounting world, their employee referral bonus is $7,000. And I'm sitting there like, that's amazing. And I say, mine's 1,000, but we also, we're about to put out their like blue diamond specials, meaning, for this time period, whoever submits a person within these 2 weeks, I'm going to double that and we're going to pay it faster for you because we need people really badly right now. And that does mean if you do those little incentives before the holidays, it does incentivize them to basically stop, think, and really help you out with that. But it's the first 6 months.
We rolled something similar about getting great employees through employee referrals. Ours is 1,500, and then we also, I was on a company call last week and asked people if they knew anyone, got a couple of resumes in. So it's really helpful. And honestly, even $7,000 may sound ridiculous to some people, but the price of a recruiter is going to be more than that. So you're saving a lot of money. You're incentivizing your employees. You're bringing in someone who has a tie to the group. I think it's a really smart thing to do.
Oh yeah, and people like to work with people that they know and that they trust, and that helps an awful lot. But make a big deal of it. Like let people know, like, hey, thanks to this person, and all that did a great job of putting some people into us. Because if you don't keep it a big noise and all out there, we do that with our town halls, and we let people know, like this quarter, thank you so much to Tom, Dick, and Harry. They've supplied these individuals to us. So you got to make it a big deal.
So for folks on the other side of the coin that are job seekers right now, looking for jobs, what would you recommend? Whether you have a job and you're trying to switch right now, or unemployed.
You got to figure out what you want first. I think a lot of times people will be like, oh, let's try it. And then here's what happens. And if you're really good, someone's going to pick you pretty fast and give you an offer really fast. Were you ready for that? And the bad thing is sometimes like, oh, I didn't expect this to happen so quick and yada, yada.
Mm,
well, you're sort of stuck. And then sometimes you make decisions really fast and without thinking it through. So really
mm,
have a plan of action. It's a funny fact, Jim. More
mm.
people spend more time on their vacation plans than their career plans. And I laugh at that because I'm like, you spend way more time at your career than on your
Yeah,
vacation.
it's
So
true.
why not spend the time on figuring out what you want to do, what
Mhm.
companies you want to target, fix up your LinkedIn, make sure
Yeah.
somebody else can read your LinkedIn and make sure it makes sense to them. Have a really good picture, a professional picture on there, not like all your friends on there, and make sure that it really has in there what you love to do. And so many of the LinkedIn's I see today are just they're blah. And you're sitting there like, oh my gosh, like you got to stand out here a little bit, guys, because people look at this stuff.
Hmm. No, I pay a lot of attention to LinkedIn's, and I mean, that's your living resume at the end of the day. People
Yep.
have asked me for my resume. I've been doing Lodestar for 8 years. I don't have an updated resume. I just send them LinkedIn. I'm like, look at this. This has, anything I'm up to.
That's what we do. Same thing.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
and I have a new client and they want to see one
Mhm.
of my people's consultants resumes. I
Mhm.
said, here's their LinkedIn profile because my team keeps that up to date.
Mhm.
And I prefer to do it that way. But you got to make sure that you have what
Yeah.
you want in there and then
Mhm.
what you're really good at. And don't be afraid to let people know like the things that you love to do.
Yeah.
Too many people don't do enough of
I
that,
always like that at the end of a resume or
right?
somewhere, because honestly, I'm going to ask you about that, because
Yeah.
if you spend a lot of time with people you work with,
Yep.
and it's important to know what you're going to talk about, or kind of think of them as a person at the end of the day, because it just makes it more interesting. And I have an employee now. He's a aspiring science fiction writer.
Wow.
Right? Which is so cool. It's so
Yeah.
neat. And it's just fun to ask him, of like, oh, I'm reading this book, or what about this? Or like, it's just, you know, fun to like learn about people's different passions, or what employee has a cat named Jon Snow or something like that. Like, it's just fun to learn
Absolutely.
those things, because it just makes it more interesting than just viewing people in their job at the end of the day.
Yeah,
So
because
yeah.
it comes down to like, I want someone to work here that understands the
Yeah.
kind of mentality that we have here and
Mhm.
what we expect of each other. And you don't have to be
Mhm.
the smartest person in the room. I'm not worried
Yeah.
about that. But I'm
Mhm.
looking for basically the most hungry
Yeah.
person in the room.
Mhm. So there's a saying by the late comedian George Carlin that I really like, or that has resonated with me over the years, is most people work just hard enough to not get fired and get paid just enough to not quit. Um, and unfortunately, I think there's some truth to that, but do you see it that way? And do you think employers can do more for that not to be the case with folks?
I think they have to basically, I hear a lot more stories now of
Mm.
employers like just expecting, well, they work for me, so they should do a good job.
Yeah.
I think that tide has changed where you
Mhm.
really have to treat them as individuals and as part of the team, almost like not saying it has to be family, but treat them with respect. And I think sometimes when they're at the top, they're so busy trying to run the company, they forgot where they started. And
Mhm.
I don't, a lot of people don't even know the names of their people or like know about their vacation. Or I
Mhm.
mean, I know the bigger the company you become, it gets harder to do that. But you got to know your people and treat them with compassion and caring.
Mhm.
Because once you start doing that, they treat your clients like that too. And
Mhm.
then it just gets, my clients will call me like, your people are great. They take good care of us. And I'm like, well, I'm glad to hear that
Yeah.
because I like taking care of my people. So it's really, it's this
Mhm.
interesting level that you have to do. But it sounds so simple, Jim. But
Mhm.
just saying a thank you card to them, just saying,
Yeah.
hey, you done a great job. Thank you so much. That means so much to them. And you
Right.
don't think it does sometimes because you're so busy in everyday life. But stuff like that, you got to do. I don't care how big a company you become, but you
Yeah.
got to do those little pieces in there because if you don't do that, then your team won't do that. And then they
Yeah.
become managers and they won't do that to their team.
Right.
So it's
One
a
thing
really
I've
tricky.
done, unfortunately, more and more, but to that personal touch, is also the non-happy milestones in people's lives too. Recognizing that with a handwritten card, or
Yeah.
something like that, I think is important as well, because you just want them to feel like you're viewing them as a real person, right?
Yeah.
At the end
Yeah.
of the day.
It's
Mhm.
so important.
Yeah.
And just we had some people coming aboard and they just got married and I sent them a wedding card and
Yeah.
they were like, that was so thoughtful. I said, yeah, but
Mhm.
you got married. Like it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And that's who I want us to be.
Right.
So even if I'm not doing it, then one of my managers is
Yeah.
saying, this person just happened. Do you mind if I send them a card or a gift? I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what we're about. And that's where they'll be that way with
Mhm.
our clients and hopefully with their
Yeah.
family. So that says a
Mhm.
lot.
I talked to someone once who he would, anytime he would hire someone, he would send flowers to their wife, right? Which I understand the sentiment. I do think it's a little bit old fashioned. What I've kind of done instead of that is I've sent a restaurant gift card for
Yeah.
something in the area. So, you and your significant other, you and your kids, you and whoever go out on the company. That's like first day, especially now people are remote. I was like, hey, I would take you out to lunch, but you don't want to talk with me anyway. So go out with your family.
Funny.
Right.
We
Mhm.
did that for the holiday party. It's a big thing
Mhm.
we have every year, but last year was, we weren't gonna have a holiday party. So
Yeah.
we made these like big kits. And we got everybody a gift card to Capital Grill.
Mhm.
And we know Capital Grill has many locations. So we made sure that they had a
Yeah.
Capital Grill near them. If not,
Mhm.
we did like another, just like a Visa card. But the idea was we had wine glasses in there, we had wine. We were
Mhm.
saying, hey, we can't celebrate together, so we're going to bring the celebration to you.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and we had heard such great remarks out of it because we thought of them, we thought of their
Yeah.
spouses. We made it fun, exciting, and saying, hey, we know we can't party together, but we hope you can party and remember us when
Mhm.
you're out there having dinner on us, and
Yeah.
it was really pretty cool. But this
Mhm.
year, I still so far meet in person, but a lot of people aren't because we have a lot of people different states, and so we're
Mhm.
still going to send a pretty cool care package to those as well.
Mhm. One of the things that comes up a lot in this podcast when I'm talking about all sorts of stuff is very often the right thing to do is also the thing that's going to help your business, right? So like it's the right thing to do to value your employees, send them a gift, something like that. Honestly, the money that you're spending for something like that and the return that you get is through the roof too.
Oh
So
yeah.
I think that's really important. One thing kind of along this vein too, I wanted to talk about. I work in a very traditional. The mortgage industry is a very established industry. The average loan officer is, I think, probably over the age of 55.
Wow.
And then you have, technology company like myself, you have younger folks coming into the industry, dealing with those generational differences, I think is a much bigger thing that's dealt with in this industry than some others. So would love to hear your clients or companies you work with that have kind of had to deal with other things, people of an older generation, how they feel about millennials and vice versa is inevitable, that it's going to create conflicts at work. So have you seen companies have to navigate that?
You know what? I would say before COVID, I would hear about that more than I hear about it now. I
Mhm.
think now what I'm hearing on both sides is the mental health piece of it.
Okay.
And I'm also starting to see if companies don't really have a strong mental health capacity component that they're
Mhm.
going to be missing out. Because if you don't have some kind of wellness or meditation from both sides of the house, now you're always going to get that thing of, my generation sees the younger generation, they don't work as hard, they're not going to
Right.
work weekends, they're not going to they're just a different breed. That's how they've been
Mhm.
brought up. And we just need to get over that. I wish I'd have people work hey, we have extra work, I'm going to do it for you. They just don't do that. And
Yeah.
you got to be okay with that.
Mhm.
And that was the biggest generational gap between the
Yeah.
both of them. But I think with COVID, that has quieted that quite a bit. But I do still see wellness, mental health, because I
Yeah.
think a lot of my CEO friends are saying, "Oh, well, I'm reaching out to the older folks," and I'm like, "No, you need to reach out to the younger folks as well." Because
Yeah.
the younger ones are having just a hard time as the older folks are right now with all of that. And that's why suicides are up significantly.
Mhm.
And so you want to
Yeah.
make sure you have things in play for your team to reach out, having a buddy system, somebody reaching
Mhm.
out to somebody, calling them. I haven't heard from this person. It's been really quiet, a lot more
Mhm.
seclusion going on both sides.
Right.
And I think it's having them as buddies, I think is helpful right now too, because they're looking out for each other and
Mhm.
they'll respect each other more too about what they bring to the table versus before it was like, them against us.
Mhm. And I think, we were making the point before about the things that companies do to value employees. And as someone who's a millennial, someone who graduated during the Great Recession, I think my generation saw a lot of companies that, were viewed as not taking care of their employees that well.
Yep.
So I think that idea of being a company man, a company woman, blood, sweat, and tears for your company, be there for 20 plus years. I just don't think that's something that's an aspiration for us because we just haven't really seen that at the end of the day. I think we've seen companies, not not really hold up their end of the bargain in some ways there. And that's probably part of why you and I saying that a company doing these types of benefits and things is so transformational and so different, because many don't. So it's a shame. And, you hate to see, the human toll of mental health and things like that. It's just absolutely heartbreaking. So if there's anything you can do to help support people, help get them help, even just ask about how they're doing or anything like that, like,
it means a lot. I had this amazing mastermind about doing videos. So I was on videos all the time, and I'm gonna be back on videos in September. I just needed a break. And ironically, I started doing them to my team and doing text message videos. Hey, how are you? I wanted to say congratulations, yada yada. The amount of response I had gotten from that, Jim, was amazing. It was like, thanks for taking the time. It didn't cost me anything, and it was maybe 30 seconds. And to me, I said that was just so impactful. So I plan on trying to do them at least once a quarter, just to say, hey, how you doing out there? Really appreciate what you've been doing, yada, yada. And people appreciate taking the time to do that versus a phone call, versus an email, and because they see your face,
So those you send to employees, clients, both?
Both. I send to clients too. Yep. Yeah, but more so my employees, because they really appreciate the feedback. And then they do the video themselves saying thank you. I'm like, oh, that's good. You're getting used to be on a video. That's good. So,
and speaking of being on the video and being recorded, I know you've started a podcast or done a podcast. I forget exactly how long, and I've been on it recently too. But how has that affected your business? How has that changed kind of your thoughts on podcasts, your thoughts on marketing? What's that journey been like?
Yeah, I think it's like a continuing learning process there. We started in January. The idea is called Top 3. It's basically entrepreneurs sharing secrets and mistakes. And it's listening to CEOs who their journey, what worked well, what didn't go well, what would they not do again? What would they should have done next time? And it's been great to hear about people's journeys. I just had Tom on there. Tom's another fellow EOer, and his whole journey about the car business. It was fascinating to hear his whole stuff. And now he's got 3 different locations, and he had a really tough year because one of his places flooded out last year, and it was really tight on money, and but he made it, and he persevered through that. His tenacity shone through, and you just have to be there, because entrepreneurs out there, we're all struggling. We're all trying to figure out how to make it work in limited funding, especially when you first get started. I tell people, like, if you can get through those first 5 years, I said, you gotta put it back into the company. Don't worry about the office. Don't worry about the car. Don't worry about all the marketing materials. Focus on your product first.
Yeah.
And your people.
Oh, absolutely. I knew someone once who said, I'd start a company, but only if I could make 6 figures to start.
Yeah.
Okay, this is not going to happen.
Not happening.
That's fine. Most people don't, but it's just, I think, having that mindset. So to not completely steal then your concept, I'll only ask for your top 1 business tip or mistake that you would give out.
You know what? I would say one, I probably wouldn't have worried and waited so long. I started, I was 39 years old. And I look back now, I think I probably could have done it when I was earlier than that in my career. I think I needed to have everything in place before I started, and I didn't. And I think it was more of that fear of jumping off the side of the ship and saying, you see this water down there, but you don't know what's below, and you just jump. And you got to believe in yourself. And if you're a hard worker your entire life, you're going to be fine, because it's the same work that I'm working now that I work for any other company. And I put my sweat and tears into that as I do here. And you'll make it do. Now you're going to have some bad clients. You're going to have some great clients, and you learn from each one of them. You're going to have some bad employees. We all have. But you got to learn from that and say, okay, so next time that's not going to happen.
I mean, just like if you work in another job, you're going to have bad managers, right? It's just the dealing with people aspect.
Yeah. Bingo. You learn from it. And then if you get so mad about it and you can't move on, you will never be an entrepreneur, because we just have to live and learn every single day.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that's a fantastic note to end on. Is there anything else you want to either promote or anything we missed kind of during the discussion here?
No, but if anybody ever has any HR questions or whatever, just follow us on tocgrp.com. And we're here to help a lot of people. We have actually HR office hours starting again in September, which is a free 1-hour service that we provide for free HR advice out there. And that was very successful during COVID times. But the idea is to help others out there. So, any HR or recruiting questions, let us know.
Well, as the current de facto HR manager of my company, I'm probably going to have to talk to you at some point. So excited for that down the road. And I tried to not ask too many personal questions at the top of the call. So
No worries at
excited
all.
to talk down the road. Marcia OConner, absolute blast. Thank you so much for having you on.
Thanks, Jim, for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right.
Have a good one.
You too.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Lodestar's Landing Leaders. I'd like to give a special thanks to Brian Rieger and Elena Gardner, who help us create this podcast every week. Please remember to like and subscribe the podcast wherever you listen to it. It helps us a lot. Thanks. Talk to you next week.